November 27th, 2020, Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. will finally put on a fight for the ages. A lot of people were looking forward to the epic clash, but there was another fight that had me pretty curious. YouTube star Jake Paul took on former pro basketball player Nate Robinson. Leading up to this fight, everyone that I knew who was a fan of basketball believed that Nate Robinson was winning. And it was a sure thing. Talked to people on the street and they were like, there's no way that some pasty ass YouTuber is going to beat a world class athlete like Nate Robinson. Other sentiments were like, Nate is driven, he's from the streets, Nate's a fighter, and the white boy is just a YouTuber. When push comes to shove, a lot of people just believe Jake Paul would break. However, when I go online and see footage of Nate's training, I have to say that I wasn't impressed. You know, there's no linear movement, no head movement. Where were the fast reflexes required for delivering a good jab? Nate Robinson looked extremely flat-footed. Whereas when I looked at Jake Paul's videos, he looked like he was light on his feet. Nate Robinson was extremely stiff and slow. He didn't have any notion of what it took to counter a punch or identify any tells. And most importantly, he didn't seem comfortable in the ring. So what exactly was he doing in sparring? Well, he didn't share what happened in sparring. However, Jake Paul released footage of his sparring, and I must say, he was dropping some of his sparring partners. Well, the fight took place, and what I suspected would happen, happened. 44 seconds into the first round, Jake Paul made Nate Robinson eat canvas. But Nate made it out of the first round. The commentating by Snoop Dogg, Sugar Ray Leonard, Israel Adesanya was actually really entertaining. Snoop kept talking about, you supposed to swing and bring it back. Don't just leave it out there. And Sugar Ray Leonard started laughing. Then it became obvious to Snoop and Israel that Nate was coming in too fast and Jake Paul was tying up with Nate when he did that. Snoop was correct about one thing. He says you got to switch it up. You can't do the same thing over and over again. Israel Adesanya interjected that eventually your opponent is going to read you. You become predictable. Well, when Nate Robinson closed the distance again, Jake Paul turned his lights out and left him motionless on the canvas. I wasn't shocked at all. Why? One basic thing. Nate Robinson has absolutely no head movement, and his head stays on the center line. If you can avoid headshots or mount a decent defense, then you can forget fighting at any level of relative competency. All of that basketball athleticism and football athleticism is meaningless. He was tough against other legitimately tough guys in the NBA who couldn't fight. But when you have to know how to fight, trying to be tough just becomes something of a humbling experience. So as I watched the interviews leading up to the fight, I shook my head and thought, Nate Robinson is really clueless about what it takes to be a fighter. This meant basketball or the gridiron. It's a different animal. I was dying when Snoop started singing the Negro spirituals when Nate Robinson got knocked down. Snoop was hilarious. The comic relief really added to the show, and that's probably why Dana White put him on that Contender series. Look, Jake Paul isn't a world beater or an exceptionally talented boxer, but he does train hard and his coach trains him well. Nate Robinson is a great athlete in football and basketball, but in boxing, not so much. He needs to fire his coaching staff and get back to the drawing board and get his win back. Jake Paul is completely beatable, but Nate has to learn to throw basic punches with snap. He needs to learn how to move his head off center line. And he needs to utilize different types of defensive stances. These are beginner concepts, but he has yet to learn them. Anyway, I kind of want to hear what you think, so leave a message in the comment section, smash that like button, and subscribe.